99% of people in crypto don't understand crypto. In this video, I want to talk about exactly what I mean by that and really show you that some of the highest up people in our current financial system have no idea when it comes down to the technology we're all invested in. I also want to talk about something very important, which is a potential black swan around the corner. Guys, something just happened with one of the largest cryptocurrency companies out there just yesterday, and this could be a really big deal. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you have any good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange Uphold down in the description of this video. That said, though, let's jump right into it. I hope you guys enjoy the content. I'm going to start out this video and jump right into the potential black swan, and then really get into something pretty shocking towards the end of the video, so make sure to stick around for that. The potential black swan I'm watching right now is on something, unfortunately, I've been calling out for a while. And that black swan, in my opinion, could potentially be around MicroStrategy. For the first time ever, since yesterday, MicroStrategy is now trading below a 1 MNAV. What this means, because I know it doesn't make a lot of sense when you just hear that, but let me explain it. MicroStrategy acquires Bitcoin, right? They can acquire 10 Bitcoin. They really have millions of Bitcoin, but they can acquire 1 Bitcoin. Now, if they acquire that 1 Bitcoin, investors in MicroStrategy are not getting access to that 1 Bitcoin, right? Because MicroStrategy is not an ETF. So MicroStrategy, the company, trades at its own valuation. If MicroStrategy is trading above the valuation of its Bitcoin, that means essentially MicroStrategy's MNAV would be above 1. So if MicroStrategy was trading 2x the size of the Bitcoin they hold, then essentially the MNAV of MicroStrategy would be 2. MicroStrategy, the company, is trading at double the valuation of the Bitcoin they hold. MicroStrategy at a 1 MNAV means they are trading on parity to the Bitcoin they hold. But MicroStrategy, for the first time ever, just went to a MNAV below 1, which essentially means MicroStrategy, the company, is trading for less than the Bitcoin they hold. But the reason this is such a big deal is because MicroStrategy doesn't have a real business. MicroStrategy essentially bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin with debt. Now, that seemed like a great move. Buy a whole bunch of Bitcoin with debt, use the Bitcoin to make a whole bunch of money that is outpacing the debt payments, and you have a Bitcoin business. There's a problem though. MicroStrategy never figured out how to make money on their Bitcoin. So now they have a whole bunch of debt that's financed at X%, right? I don't know the percent. But the problem is they're committed to never selling Bitcoin, and they haven't figured out a way to make money with their Bitcoin. So now they have these debt payments coming due, and they made their own problem even worse because they started promising things like dividends, which they can't pay because they don't make any money. So they just have all this Bitcoin now. Now the Bitcoin is appreciating, likely, and will continue to appreciate faster than the debt payments come due. But they have no way to monetize the Bitcoin. So the only way they can make good on the debt payments is to ultimately sell the Bitcoin. Essentially what's happening with the MNAV is the market is saying, wait, why would I ever take the risk with this company when I can just buy Bitcoin? Why would I pay 2x the price of Bitcoin? For example, when MicroStrategy was trading at an MNAV of 2, why would I invest in MicroStrategy and be paying double the price of Bitcoin when I can just go buy Bitcoin? Right now, MicroStrategy, in my opinion, is going to fall to an MNAV well below 1 because the company doesn't have anything they're doing to generate profit to service the debt. So any person with a brain is going to look at this and say, oh my God, they're likely going to have to start selling off their Bitcoin. Investors are going to lose trust, and therefore no one is going to want to be invested in MicroStrategy because they can't make any money, and people are going to perceive their Bitcoin investment in MicroStrategy as unsafe. And I've been calling out forever, MicroStrategy should never be trading above an MNAV of 1. They're always going to be less valuable than the Bitcoin they hold because ultimately you have the risk that Saylor is going to mess this entire thing up. Let's take, for example, just a very, very simple example, right? Say, for example, none of you trusted me at all, right? And you guys were all sending me your Bitcoin to say, we're going to invest in this whatever, right? I'm holding your Bitcoin. Essentially, a lot of you might say, well, I would rather just hold my Bitcoin myself, right? I don't want to just send this to someone I don't trust and have them manage it for me. That seems kind of sketchy, right? So why would people ever be trading a full valuation for a Bitcoin owned by MicroStrategy and not even them? It doesn't make any sense. And this is going to bring MicroStrategy's MNAV down because people are finally starting to wake up to that. I've been calling it out since day one. Why it took the market so long to realize that this is a potential problem, I have no idea. But MicroStrategy's share price is tanking. MNAV is below 1. Everyone's looking at Michael Saylor saying, what are you going to do? And they don't have any plan. They still can't make money on the Bitcoin. So we'll see where this ends up. This could potentially get really bad. I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping they figure it out. I'm hoping they figure out a way to save this. But the whole idea just never really made any sense from the start. If you are going to take on debt and that debt payment is 3%, you have to make money outpacing the debt payment. So you better hope they had a strategy to make 4% on Bitcoin. And then boom, that's a positive carry and they can make a lot of money. But how could you issue all this debt with absolutely no plan to turn this into a profitable business? This is where MicroStrategy made a huge mistake, and this is where Evernorth is getting it right. You guys remember, Evernorth is actually a company doing an XRP treasury strategy. But the thing about Evernorth is they came to it with a plan on how they were going to make money. Their plan from the start was to use the XRP they acquire to generate profit. That means that they can take on debt payments, they can grow the company, but it's a profitable company, so they can service the debt, grow it, and pay investors. The fact that MicroStrategy never thought that far ahead is insane. In fact, I don't understand how they still haven't figured it out. I mean, I could think of 4 or 5 ways they could potentially make some returns and profit from this thing. I have no idea what's going on there. The whole thing is weird. It's crazy. I've always thought Michael Saylor was a little bit off, but for them to allow this to get to this point, in my opinion, is a little concerning. If MicroStrategy goes under, I guarantee you they'll be bought out by someone. Maybe all the conspiracy theorists in the very early days were right. This was just a strategy for the United States government to get their treasury by taking over MicroStrategy. I have no idea. The entire thing reeks. Seems like a terrible business. MNAV is reflecting it. No one wants to take the risk of Michael Saylor holding their Bitcoin anymore. And whether or not this falls apart and implodes, I have no idea. In my opinion, it was never a good idea. They never had a real plan. It was always just winging it. And it never seemed like Michael Saylor really was the guy who should be at the head of this. He's blown up things before in the past. And this to me just looks like another blow up waiting to happen. Obviously, I don't have any direct proof of any of this. This is just my opinion based off what I'm seeing. But guys, there seems to be some smoke, and where there's smoke, I think there could be fire. We'll have to see how all this plays out. And I want to finish this video off and talk about a comment I made the other day in terms of, or that I made in the beginning of this video, where I said 99% of people don't understand crypto. If you guys remember from my video last night, I talked about how essentially the head of digital assets at VanEck was essentially saying, I'm never going to launch an XRP ETF. And then what happened? Another company launched an XRP ETF, and it blew out every single ETF that VanEck has ever issued before in its history. So today, of course, I had to have some fun with it and poke some fun at him and say, hey, nice try in the ETF strategy. If you just listened to me, you would have had the most successful ETF in history. And I think it probably rubbed them the wrong way, because he came out and started essentially butting the XRP ledger. Now, I want to show you guys how little this guy knows, because it's really going to open your eyes to the fact that, guys, most people don't understand these assets. This is the head of digital assets at VanEck, Matthew Sigel. He reached out and said, what's the purpose of the XRP ledger? David Schwartz answered. He said, well, people are answering you here, but just so you're aware, one of the best parts about the XRP ledger is its ethos is there's no middleman. Be your own bank. So people can't tax the network. The XRP ledger doesn't have these artificial reward mechanisms in it like Bitcoin. In the Bitcoin blockchain, if you do a transaction, it moves super slow and it's really expensive because there's a bunch of middlemen ripping out fees. Matthew Sigel responds to this and says, so if XRP holders aren't earning anything from the ecosystem and the protocol doesn't accrue value, who's the one collecting the tax? Now, I don't even really know what this means, but he's essentially saying that because the XRP ledger doesn't have middlemen, that's somehow a bad thing. I responded to this. I said, this doesn't even make a little sense. The Bitcoin protocol doesn't accrue value. Miners tax the ecosystem as a middleman and then dump their profits on the market. They dump their Bitcoin on the market. When you make a Bitcoin transaction, your transaction fee goes to a miner who takes that transaction fee and dumps it on the market. That's not value accrual. That's a step in the process that's not needed. That miner doesn't have to get the Bitcoin. That miner doesn't have to dump the Bitcoin. It's just a whole wasted system that, in my opinion, is not needed. I said on the XRP ledger, there is no middleman because that's the entire point of this technology. The entire point of cryptocurrency technology was to get rid of middlemen. It was to get rid of excessive fees. It was to make decentralized settlement. And the idea that this is somehow a negative thing goes against the entire ethos of why these protocols exist. They exist to get rid of the middlemen, to get rid of people affecting these transactions, to get rid of people scraping fees. And the head of digital assets at Van Eck is coming out and saying, well, if there's no taxes and there's no high fees on this blockchain is pointless. He's completely missing the fact that these blockchains were created to be settlement networks, not fee extraction networks. So to miss this is to misunderstand the entire purpose of this technology. The purpose of this technology is settlement infrastructure, not to be a fee extraction Ponzi magic internet money generator. That doesn't make any sense. So this idea that you have to have these complex fee accruals and people have to be paying rewards, it's nothing more than a scheme. Most networks inflate their token supply to reward people, but they're being debased at the same time. The Bitcoin network, they pay miners, so the miners dump back on the network. It's totally unneeded. It's unnecessary middleman. The entire point of cryptocurrency was to get rid of the middleman. I just want you guys to remember this. A lot of people with a lot of opinions, with a lot of authority, like to act like they understand this stuff. But I don't think there's any way anyone watching this video right now, if you made it this far throughout this rant, can logically look at this and tell me with a straight face that this guy, Matthew Sigel, has any idea what he's talking about when it comes to cryptocurrency technology. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this content. And for now, Mickle out.